I'm Sai.
And I'm your host, Deera.
Welcome to the Girl So Anyways podcast.
So today we have the Color Theory Society.
Yes.
And introduce yourselves. Shout out your Instagrams.
Absolutely.
Marcus, I am the CFO for the Color Theory Society. You can follow me at Marcus on the Beat on Instagram and TikTok.
I'm Jordan. I'm the marketing director for the Color Theory Society, and my Instagram handle is j_.
My name is Brian Waves, one of the co-founders of all these great folks, and then you can follow me at Brian Waves on everything.
And I'm Nick Johnson. I'm the CEO of Color Theory. You can follow me at the Color Theory Society.
So make sure you guys check them out. You can also follow us on Instagram, TikTok,
All the same.
all of our social medias at gurlsoanywayspod. So let's get into it, y'all. So tell us about the Color Theory Society and how it came about. What's your goals? What is it about? Give us the tea.
So the Color Theory Society really started because, we all have a lot of conversations about color, and, it plays out in society, right? And then in school, we grow up hearing things about racism and prejudiceness and things like that. And if you actually go look at race and the root of it and the word and everything, like it dates back to like some scientists pretty much in Europe saying that white people were more civilized essentially than like black people, right? So then you start working from that, and then when you realize that race is just another social construct, you understand it's not real, color is real, right? And then ethnicities, we have culture and everything like that. And so the whole point of the Color Theory Society is really to start that conversation, really for it to be a productive conversation too as well. Conversation like this can definitely get taken left and like misconstrued depending on like who's a part of the conversation and everything.
Don't eye me, Marcus.
Yeah, so yeah. But and exactly, so like a conversation like that is, I'm glad that you already were talking about it.
Do you guys want to talk about that?
So we gotta.
Yeah, please do.
Okay, so listen. Let me tell y'all how me and Marcus met.
Please tell us.
Okay, from my point of view, because my point of view is the actual point of view of what happened.
Ooh, tea!
So look, I was at Rum Punch, I was lit, yada, minding my business. When his friend decided he wanted to talk to my friend. So, of course, me being the great friend, I'm entertaining his friend. Me and my friends are talking to him, yada. Then I look down in my drunkenness and see a sweater, that says, race is not real. And I'm like, what? So I'm reading step 1, race is not real, yada. So I asked him, I'm like, what's up with your jacket? Like, did you go to a PWI? Because this is just, it's not adding
I'm
up.
giving PWI.
It's giving PWI. So I'm like, like, why are you brainwashed? And he's like, brainwashed? That's crazy. Like, yo, you're wildin'. I'm like, I gotta be, because am I tripping? Is the tequila winning, or does your shirt say race is not real? So we're having like this whole intellect conversation in the middle of the club, drunk. My friend keeps yelling, so am I bisexual then? It was just so much fun, but it sparked a real conversation. So I wind up telling him, like, we have a podcast, and these are topics and conversations that need to be brought up, things that need to be talked about, especially living here in the South. I'm not from the South. I know you said you weren't from the South.
Yeah.
So
It's
to
different.
me, race is real, right?
Mhm.
But you guys have a different point of view. So I'm just curious, like, Marcus, let's start with you. What is your theory on why race is not real but color is?
That is a great question. Can I backtrack just a little bit? Just
A little bit.
Yeah,
I'll let you defend himself.
That's what he
I'll let you
wanted to say. He wants to defend himself.
He really wants to defend himself.
just
but-
tad bit, because there's always two sides
Right.
to every story. Right. So I was minding my own business, enjoying myself, and then somebody just came up to me and says, "What does your shirt say? You can read. Which is not real."
This is the sassiest.
So I think I called him sassy that night. When he told me sassy, this is wild. I was
No,
like,
that is the perfect description for Marcus. Sassy.
Time out. Can I ask a question though?
Yes.
Was there actually an additional friend talking to another friend?
It was. I don't remember who their friend was
I
or
was
anything
with-
about them.
Okay.
I
You
was
ain't got to drop names.
Don't name drop. We ain't gonna name drop either. We just gonna cut that part
If
out.
that person was actually there, like that sparked this, or she just ran up on you and was like,
No, it was
What
what's
did your
that?
shirt say?
I probably still would have done it. Like, even if my friend wasn't, talking to his friend, I probably still would have just been like, because I don't understand. Like, I am baffled. I'm taken aback. I'm confused.
She definitely ran up.
What was the confusing part?
It's very, because I still just, I can't fathom that. You think race isn't real. So is racism real?
Yes.
So,
Go ahead.
Okay.
Somebody answered it.
well, I think the whole point is to be very assertive and get your attention. We're not necessarily saying that race and racism isn't real, but the whole point, especially of the step collection that we're doing, is to break down where it comes from. So to really start at the beginning and then build up to how we got to this whole idea of race and separating people based on what we call race, and we really only talk about race.
Yeah.
Especially during the Black Lives Matter movement, which is kind of how this all started around this time. We were just hearing so many conversations about racism and Karens and this and that, and it was just, nobody was talking about color and how we all are different shades. And we get treated differently.
Yes.
Based on that within our own community. So it's really about breaking down where it's all coming from and then how we got here and how we move forward in a productive way. Not just trying to totally push to the side that race is real.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
But isn't when you say colorism and different shades, doesn't that go hand in hand? With different shades of color and
Goes hand in
colorism
hand.
with racism
No.
or mistreatment.
Well, I would say, what is race to you?
It's complicated. It's not a group of people. I can't say it is, but it is. It's two in one. To me, race is a group of people. We're one race as Black people.
Yeah.
But then Black is also a color. So there's that controversy between the two. How do you distinguish? But also, I
What's
can't
that
say that
difference?
we're Black. I consider myself a brown woman, but Latinas or Latinos consider themselves brown. So how do we distinguish between these three things?
Is it
Because
background?
at that, we can start talking about culture.
Right.
And where that's different. I just recently traveled to Belize, and so did Marcus. And when I was there, they don't refer to themselves as Black. And what we would classify as Hispanics and Black people, they down there are all one people. They all get along. They all intermingle. It's all their family, and that's love. And they represent their cultures, and that's how they have a respect for each
Right.
other. But when we're here, we're oh, you're Black, you're white, you're Mexican, and it's just so it's not like this
I get what you're
everywhere.
saying. It's here in America, we put people in a box or
Yes.
a category or who they associate themselves with or who they're supposed to be with.
Yes.
In a sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's how you.
Yeah.
I also
Control
feel like
areas.
it's a thin line between figuring out someone's, because we're all Americans, right?
Yeah.
But there's so many subcategories. You're African American, Asian American, Mexican American, whatever it may be. How do we distinguish between all these different ethnicities and somebody being a certain race? That's what I'm trying to get to the core of. What separates an ethnicity or a cultural person from a specific race? Because there's so many different specific races of Black people.
True.
Caribbeans are Black, Africans are Black, Black Americans are Black.
But doesn't
So-
that come down to I see, and that's why I think that's more like ethnicity. And I think that's where we should kind of leave it at, because let's say that someone is brown, right? But it's adopted and grows up in an Asian family. You know what I'm saying? Then ethnically they would identify because that's the culture that they got brought up. You know what I'm saying? Feel me? And then when you talk about stuff like colorism and whatnot, the reason I think that's different from racism is because I think colorism can happen inside the community.
Yeah, it definitely
You know what I'm saying? And that's
For
across the worlds. That happens inside, like Asian culture, like
Indian.
Indian culture, African culture, and like we see a lot of that goes back to, I know Jordan and I have had conversations about this, but like the European beauty standard,
Yes.
right? To like people are pushing out like the lighter skin tones, things like that. And I think that's where we really start to talk about like colorism and some of the impacts that has. And then you look at things like redlining, right? Where they say if two races aren't fitted to commingle with each other, we can deny one person the right to live here. So it's like that was also used to put into law as well. You know what I'm saying? So you get things like that, and it just kind of.
It's so many different aspects of race and ethnicity also. You know, I find it interesting, you were talking about like colorism in our community. I definitely have experienced colorism living in the South. Like I'm, again, not from the South, I'm from the West Coast, and we're more of a melting pot there. So there's a lot of different ethnicities, a lot of different races there, so many different people. So I've never experienced it until I moved here. I literally was at a club one night, and I'm lighter, of course. I refuse to admit that, but I'm a little bit lighter, right? I'm more on the fair side. And a girl that was maybe like 4 or 5 people up from me, he told her she couldn't get in, right? Oh, you're not dressed right. Mind you, this is Atlanta. No one wears heels and dresses to the club. You could get into the club with jeans on and heels and a t-shirt. Seriously. And some Air Force. You can even get in with sandals on. I've gotten into clubs with sandals on. Matter of fact, that night I was wearing sandals. I was wearing sandals, a skirt, and a t-shirt and a jean jacket. And he let me in free of charge. Free of charge. And didn't let this girl in because he claimed that she was underdressed. And this is a very like super chill, relaxed lounge / club we were going to. And I was so shook. And so, you know, I wind up like, I'm talking to my friend. I'm like, is this normal? Like, is this how they move here? And she's like, yeah. Like, and you would think because this is the South where a lot of black people reside, that it wouldn't be like this. And she was not anything other than beautiful. Absolutely. She wasn't anything other than beautiful. She took it so gracefully though. She was just like, it's fine. I would have told that whole, give me enough of all this shit over. Who you talking to?
Marcus knows.
A little bit, a little feisty. It's fine. But yeah, it was crazy. Like that was the first time I ever like was in a situation where somebody was like where I experienced colorism like face to face. I saw it. And it freaked me out. I was like shook. So when I got up to him, I asked him like, why didn't you let that girl in? He was like, oh, she was wearing sneakers. I said, I'm wearing sandals. He was like, yeah, but you're prettier. You can like da 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 da. I was so shook. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. I was like, what? I wanted to believe him, but it was just insane. Like to think that, and it was a black man, which made it all the worse.
Yes.
It's so much more hurtful for women, especially women of color, when black men say stuff like that to us. It hurts so bad. Like it hurt.
That's a whole different conversation.
Woo.
Girl.
Okay,
That's a whole
listen,
other podcast.
You might have to come back for another episode
Yes.
and tie it on your own. But yeah, it was really hurtful. Like I hurt for her because I can't imagine how many times that's happened to her. That never happens to me.
Yeah.
I have a privilege, unlike, you know, some of my other friends who are not the same color as me. I have a privilege, and it's really sad. Like, it was really hurtful. So, when you talk about colorism, like, it's definitely prevalent here a little bit more than
even amongst, you know, myself and then Calvin and Nick. Like, we're all, you know, African American black men, but we all, if you walk into a room all together, we will all be stereotyped differently based on, you know, the complexion of our skin, right?
Absolutely.
So, I mean, especially down here in the South, and I mean, if you take a look at it, even like in how they portray female rap artists, like
yes,
now they always portray the fairer skin, lighter skin female rap artists.
That's facts.
So it's unfortunately it's everywhere, but this is what the Color Theory Society is for, to bring, you know, these conversations into the limelight.
So if this is step 1, talk about step 2. Well, I don't know how you guys can give us too much info, but give us a little sneak peek. What is step 2 gonna look like? I'm scared. Shoot. This is sparking some controversy. Like I'm in the club. Like yo, what is this?
I don't know if Calvin's ready to talk about it yet.
So yeah, step 2 is definitely in the works, and I think step 2 is in the works because we want to make sure we're maximizing step 1, right? So we don't want to take too many steps ahead before we really set that like solid foundation in the community and start having the initial conversation before you start trying to have another conversation. Because it's definitely, I mean, as we can see with this one, it has so many different avenues, right? So we want to make sure we're locking in on this one, at least getting people, I think the important part is getting people to talk about it.
Yeah.
Because like we mentioned, with certain groups and certain people, this can be a conversation that just isn't had because it's uncomfortable. And that you and I have talked about that.
Extremely uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It is.
It's going to be an extremely uncomfortable conversation because a lot of people, I think, when you start talking about color and really you start trying to divide and give them race, they automatically assume it's a blame game.
Yeah,
It's not a blame game.
for sure.
We understand that it happened. We're not going to forget,
Right.
but at the same time, we also need to learn how to move forward. We need y'all to move forward as well. Admit, okay, cool, now how do we fix it?
Right.
And that's really what it comes down to. It's more of a unity and not a division.
Excellent.
Now I feel like it's a lot more discreet or within policies or institutionalized, like within America, because even though like we may see for example, I know you guys like with the Trayvon Martin and all that, but a lot of like majority of it is within policies of America that is not talked about a lot. With
They
prison
just try to get up.
systems,
Yeah.
yes, with all that, how we are, African Americans are the highest incarcerated compared to other races. It's just, it goes on and on, like in regards to the list of racism, but it's not there, but it's literally there. Which is
Yeah.
crazy.
No, it's really wild because they just try to like slip in
Yes.
these little policies. Like we won't notice
Notice.
because most times we don't.
We don't.
Until it's time for you to go to jail for it.
Or until it's on TikTok.
I
Yeah.
agree.
I think off of that note too, I think we have to do a better job of making sure. I know this is something I blacked at, but when you see someone that's involved in politics or like policies and procedures, like, really making sure. Obviously, you want to make sure your beliefs align with that person, right? But making sure we're backing them. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
It's like a different type of now versus like the mid 1900s, like the 1950s, 1960s. I feel like it's different in terms of like how we back some of these people.
Yes,
Um,
I agree.
like shout out to Reverend James Woodall. I know he's very active. If you are familiar with him, and so like that's just someone tap into. You probably learn something from him. And he's like stepping in the right direction and speaks out a lot. So like let's go support him. Let's go make sure we do what we can.
I used to my little piece of heaven. I used to be the president of the NAACP chapter in California, where I'm from, for like 2 years, and it was the best, most informative, educational 2 years that I ever had while I was in college. I learned so much about being black and what our people went through during the segregation era, during slavery. Like, it's so much stuff we don't know, and it's because as the generations have flown, since those times, a lot of the information is kind of like buried. We don't learn about it in school. We only learn about slavery. We don't learn about
Cookie cutter
Gets
version.
banned.
definitely,
the cookie cutter version.
and it's real cookie cutter. Like, it's only the bad
Extremely,
stuff that
yeah.
happened. It's never any of the good things. They don't talk about all of the entrepreneurs and trailblazers of black people who have invented things, who set the bar for us. It's interesting, but I definitely agree. We have to start tapping in and really paying attention to what's going on, because I know for a fact, and I hate to say this, but I know for a fact I don't know what's going on with most of the politics in this world. I kind of stopped paying attention when they let Trump get in office. So, it's sad, but it's difficult to have hope in our government when someone like that was able to get into office and spew so much hate for so many different groups of people.
Openly, too.
Very openly. So I think that I agree with you, Calvin. We definitely need to do a better job at being more present and not looking to social media to educate, because social media is media in general.
Yeah, I was like, just as bad as
You gotta be careful where you get your information.
Right. Yeah, media in general can be very deceiving.
You get so much confirmation bias too. Like
Yes.
say something right now, and I guarantee you can go see the internet or on social media in general, and find something that's going to validate what you're saying. You know what I'm saying? So when that happens too, it's like now we have all this misinformation.
Yes.
There's an information overload, and I think that increases the polarization of people.
Absolutely. COVID's a perfect example of that. When COVID hit in California, it was on my birthday. We were in the middle of eating dinner, and someone literally turned on a purge alarm, I lost my shit. I was like, oh, get me out. Like, it's time to go, Mom. Like, we gotta pack it up, wrap it up, let's go. Somebody turned on the purge alarm and was like, it's time. I'm freaking out. I'm like, what the hell is going on? All you see on the TV screen is like, they're talking about all these people that are dying and a lockdown and like all of this stuff. It was just so much chaos when it probably didn't even need to be that much chaos. Like, I think about that a lot. A lot of people died from COVID, but that was overshadowed so much by them showing the numbers.
Yeah.
They never really, we don't even, I to this day don't even know how many people died from COVID.
I feel like the numbers were inaccurate. Like, it had to be off by a lot.
How were hundreds of thousands of people dying?
And we're still
And
Yeah.
we're
Still.
is it not crazy? Like,
make it make sense.
we're still not, we're still poor. We're still trillions and billions and millions of dollars in debt.
Yeah.
And all these people died.
It's crazy. I would like to mention, so I graduated with my master's in public health. And the reason why I know like a lot of like racism stuff or health related racism stuff is because of my degree. And another thing that I also wanted to mention is environmental racism that a lot of people don't know about or talk about. I would say mostly Hispanic and African American communities live in places where it is heavily like polluted.
Yeah.
And places that have a lot of lead, so they're more prone to, get diseases in the future and stuff, but like nobody really knows about environmental racism at all. So why aren't other races living in these specific areas? It's
They
crazy.
pushed us into these
I
areas.
thought
Yeah.
it's just a trickle down effect.
That
Yeah.
even when we've had Tulsa
Yes.
and Lake Lanier,
Oh,
I just found out
yes.
about Lake Lanier
It's crazy.
via TikTok. Of
You
course.
know.
It's
but like these things
Crazy.
were thriving Black communities
Yeah.
that were torn down by white people so that we would be relocated into certain areas that they deemed acceptable for how they see us. And so that's what they feel like we deserve. So they pushed us into those places. And whites are superior, that's what they say.
I don't agree.
I don't either. I highly disagree to that. One thing that I've learned since being down here is that is definitely prevalent here.
Yeah.
Like, I feel it sometimes when I go into places, or when I'm talking, because you guys hear how I talk very proper. Somebody will look at me and think I'm maybe ghetto, or, she's a regular Black girl until I talk, and they're like, oh, I literally had someone tell me, you sound so educated.
Oh wow.
Is that a backhanded compliment?
Yeah.
Like, how?
It is.
It's like
It is.
microaggression.
It was very much so
It's
microaggression.
passive aggressive.
Yeah.
I was just like, thank you.
I'm sure we all get the same.
We don't even know how to respond.
Like,
And I
are you
feel like-
saying something? Are you trying to be nice, or are you being offensive? Like, I can't tell.
So I have a question
A little bit
for
of
you.
both.
Maybe. A lot. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes.
Growing up on the West Coast,
Mm-hmm.
I have become a master code switcher,
Oh.
unfortunately.
Absolutely.
So, I feel like when things like that happen, when they compliment you, and it's just like a backhanded, like, oh, you're actually
So
educated.
you sound
Whoa.
so great. You talk so well for a Black girl.
Sounds so
It's
proper,
so,
right?
like,
Yeah.
it's so weird, right? But we respond to it by actually saying, like,
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's like we don't know how to act in those kinds of situations, so I'm just wondering, like, your experience with code switching.
I definitely code switch 1,000%. This is how I'm talking to you guys right now is my normal voice, but I can definitely go full Barbie and be like, hi, like, absolutely, and it's natural. Like, it doesn't even, I don't even realize that I'm doing it. I've definitely had a very interesting time living in Georgia or anywhere in the South that I've ever traveled with my voice. Like, I own a business, so when I call people to, set up their consultations for their cleaning or talk to them about how many bedrooms they have in their house, they always think I'm white. And then when I pop up to their house the day of the service, they kind of look at me like, or they'll ask me, are you Miss Brown or, Mrs. Brown? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, oh, I thought you worked for them. Oh, I thought you were, one of the employees. No, baby, I'm the owner.
I don't do it anymore. It's crazy because I was talking to one of my African friends, co-workers at work today, and she was talking on the phone. She's like, hi, I'm Debbie, da, da. And I went over there, I'm like, Debbie, is that you? And she's like, I said, don't do that anymore. So it's like, I feel like as a whole, we have this, they talk and their voice is like high pitched and squeaky, and we try to imitate them in a sense. And oftentimes we do it and we don't notice. So now I'm like, I don't do it anymore. Or I try to catch myself, I'm like, no, don't do that. Like, use your regular voice, because I want people to know who I am. Like, I'm a black woman and I'm proud of it.
Yeah.
I don't want to be a Teimyrna. Like, no, like, I don't want to be that person. Like, it sucks, but we've grown accustomed to it. And I think we've been groomed into code switching a lot.
I know I have, definitely.
Totally.
My mom literally calls it, she tells me, like, you need to have a customer service voice.
Yes.
That's what she calls it. But my mom is older, so, you know, for her, that was what you had to have in order to get by. For us, not so much, but because that's how I was raised, it's very difficult for me to know when I'm switching. Like, I don't see it at all. I don't hear it. I don't know until you tell me.
It becomes like
Yeah.
second nature.
I was about to say, but it's customer service voice for all of us is second nature. I mean,
Yeah.
we're all in sales. I mean, except minus marketing, but I mean, I'm sure she probably does it as well. You get on the,
it's
Yeah,
you get on the
she's-
phone.
I'm selling myself.
Like, but you're selling yourself. You gotta get on the phone and be like, hey,
I
how are
gotta
you?
get on Zoom, smiling.
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta do that. You
That's
gotta
not the same as
You
a
gotta
high
give
pitch.
it a little flair. Everybody's got to change it up just a little bit. Now, to the extent in which you change, do you alter your entire ego in order to fit in?
Mm.
That's a little different. That's a true code switcher, but not in a negative way. You can code switch to kind of fake it till you make it. Play the game. You got to play the game because
But I feel like
that's
code
just what we
switching
do.
has led to like a lot of identity
Issues.
crisis
I had an
and
identity
black
crisis.
women.
I agree.
I definitely had an identity crisis.
Because for my whole life growing up, I was always the one black girl in the class, but I never saw it that way until like the slavery conversation started happening.
in
But
middle school, you're
yeah,
like,
they're like, oh, shit.
why are you guys
You
all
okay?
staring at me?
Like, yeah, like, you know? So, moving here has made it more like, okay, so who am I? Am I even black enough to fit into these spaces? Am I like white enough to be over here? Like, because I am mixed.
You're biracial.
So it's like, it's very difficult to be.
To navigate through.
I definitely
Yeah.
can relate. I experience the same things. I am also, I would not say biracial. I am mixed.
Yeah.
So my grandparents are, Caucasian, or one of my grandparents. I am not directly white. My dad is black. My mom is black. But when people look at me, they think automatically that I'm half white, half Spanish. That people talk to me in Spanish, and I can understand them, but not because I'm Spanish speaking, but because I took 4 years of Spanish.
Yeah.
So I definitely can relate. I started noticing maybe when I was about 15 that I was different than my friends. I grew up in a very white community in California. Again, it's a mix, so the kids weren't racist intentionally,
Yeah.
right? It's not intentional, like it's never intentional, but it's just a product of your environment, right? So their parents are probably saying racist things at home. My parents never felt like they needed to have that talk with me about like, you're a black girl and your friends are not black, but because of me just growing up in a melting pot of people. So I think when I hit about 15, that's when I finally started to notice that, oh shoot, you're black.
Do you
Like,
feel
you're black.
like parents have, well, I guess you guys, kind of like an open question, but I feel like parents don't have the you're black conversation with their daughters.
Definitely.
But with their sons, I feel like that might be a little bit different. Did you guys have that kind of conversation?
I definitely did, and I think I understand. Yeah, I definitely did. My dad also has like a military background too, and like a police background, so we definitely had that conversation.
I mean, my dad had it with both of us, but he is a darker skinned man. And then we are two brown versus my little brother he's part of your relation. He definitely had that conversation with both of us. It probably didn't resonate until I got to be like a teenager.
Yeah.
Maybe probably more so for me, but I think it resonated with my sister early because she was treated early from the jump. Darker skin, very proper. Hair does not look like it should, per se, person stereotype. So that kind of played into the role, and then she speaks, and it's like, what's going on
What's
over
happening
here?
here?
Yeah.
So you gotta understand. I think early on. I think every parent should do it. I don't know if every parent does do it, but they should give you like it doesn't need to be a fear tactic, but you need to like, hey,
You're black.
you are black. Just so you know. I'm not saying that that's gonna, impede you in life, but you do need to realize that you are black, so there are gonna be some hindrances. You just gotta push through it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I didn't have to talk. But my talk was more like being black and the police, not like being
That's
black
how my
and
talk.
yeah.
I never had
Like
these
what to
talks.
do when you
Never had
get
these
pulled
talks?
over.
Mine happened.
I think that's more so for men, yeah. I would definitely say that one is
Yeah.
being black, white, or riding 4D.
That's the thing. What is that? Tell me about that. I don't know.
Four
I'm
people,
telling y'all.
four
these things are-
guys in a car. 4 black guys in a car. There's a strong chance that you might get pulled over. Especially depending on the type of car that you're in. If it's super nice and you're in a more affluent neighborhood and there's 4 of y'all, you may not be dressed and maybe the city doesn't know you that way. There's a strong chance that you might get pulled over and they be like, whose car is this? Did you steal this car?
Wow.
We got pulled over for rolling past a stop sign my freshman year, and we all got put in the car and like patted down, searched.
Wow.
The car got searched for rolling past a stop sign.
Did you give them your ID or something? They just
Honestly, I don't even think we gave him our ID. I don't think so. But it was just like
I feel like that's very.
pulled us over, and
That
then
is.
another one. And then at the time, like being a frat, like I was just trying to get back to the dorm.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I wasn't trying to be.
Do you have any smoke? Yeah, you were just
Yeah.
ready to get out of there.
And and there's situations like that where it kind of reinforces the need to have that conversation.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? With people and stuff. And then because you said the hindrances and stuff like that, and I want to be very clear that we're not saying that European Americans or, you know what I'm saying, people that have like a lighter greenish skin color, white, whatever the case may be, we're not saying that they can't go through struggles or hindrances in life. I think the thing to point out is the underlying reason.
Yes.
Like, and a lot of that for them is economics.
Absolutely.
A lot of it for us comes into the color of our skin.
Yeah.
Because even someone, I was using this example with one of my friends and whatnot. Him and I always have conversations like this. And I was telling him was, wow, there could be a poor white family, right? But because they live in, and especially because we were having a conversation based around like the 1900s and stuff. Like, yes, there could be, in terms of generations, there could be a poor white family, right? But the poor white child will still be able to go to the white school because they're white. So at the same time, they're still afforded a certain education. Versus the black child or the child that's not white would not be afforded that same privilege.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Experience,
And then-
scholarship.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So like all that stuff plays, and I think that's the thing about this, all of this is because it's generational, and the first thing people want to jump to is like, that's not happening now. And it's like, while that's not happening now, it doesn't take away like a domino effect that you have. You know what I'm saying? Like everything's a chain reaction. So it's not that people are trying to live in the past or anything like that, but if we're not learning from our missteps and what happened, then we're just gonna keep doing the same thing
It's a
over
repeated
and
cycle.
over and over again. People are so quick to shut that conversation down. They're like, I don't want to talk about that. You know, that's in the past. Like nobody today, like was a plantation owner and stuff like that. It's like cool, and I'm not saying like cool. All right, I get it. That's fine. But the example I gave him was I was like, let's just say right now I just punched you in the jaw, and I broke it. You know what I'm saying? And I broke it, and now he can't speak, right? So now because he can't speak, he has to have a certain type of job, and he's only going to be able to make so much money because he can't talk. You know what I'm saying? So now that's going to set his children back because he's been in probably like a blue collar job. You know what I'm saying? For his life. Okay, now that kid has to start from ground zero, and that's like applicable to some of the things when you're talking about non-white folks or non-European folks, American folks, is because we're starting almost a generation behind. and then they said, you all have the same opportunities. Okay, cool. In the past, when we went to go get those opportunities, you burned our towns down. You told us we were victims of a person. You told us that we, weren't able to go vote. When you did tell us we were able to go vote, the KKK was at the poll telling us vote if you want to. And we all know what that meant.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And then at no point in time has, majority speaking, you're gonna have your rare cases.
Right.
Right? But at no point in time were European Americans going to the polls and fearing for their lives or being hung up in public. Or the Black Panthers were never yes, and people can say what they want to about certain groups, right? But at the same time, that's spun out of being oppressed.
Exactly.
That wasn't something where people had power and were trying to put somebody down.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So like,
I agree.
it's just so
100%.
many differences when you start to like, I don't want to say compare side by side, but
We start to
look at
break
them.
it down.
Yeah, we start to break
Yeah.
it down as to why certain things aren't. You know what I'm saying?
So I have a question and feel free, this is an open-ended question for anybody. What do you guys feel about affirmative action? So I don't know if everybody knows what affirmative action is, but it's basically, I wouldn't say a free pass, but it's a way for Black people to get a little bit extra help in educational areas, but I've never actually got any of this affirmative action stuff that they say we get. I never got good financial aid. They always said my parents made too much. I made too much. So I want to know what you guys think about it, but I also want to know, have you guys ever experienced any scholarships or anything like this because you're Black?
I have.
You have?
Yes. In college, I applied for some of these scholarships, but most of them were tailored towards like Black or African American people, and majority of all of my courses were paid for undergrad, and I don't think I came out of any debt except for like $2 or $3 grand. So all of my stuff was paid for, scholarships and hope and all that.
That's good.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
So I took advantage of it.
So do you feel like it benefited you, or do you feel like you were cheated because you feel like they gave it to you just because you're Black?
No, I don't feel like I was cheated. I feel like I earned it because I paid my own way and I made sure my grades were fine. So that way I can be able to qualify for these scholarships from when I got into college.
What was it like resource-wise?
Yes.
I would say in regards to finding them, they were hard. My high school was like all Black, so everybody had all the resources to scholarships or whatever. But finding the scholarship that I earned, I looked for it and sourced it myself.
Yeah.
I
That's really
definitely never got that experience. Like, let me tell you, I went to, again, a very white high school, and I didn't realize I was Black until like my junior year. I was like, oh wow, I'm actually Black. Like, okay, let me join the STEP team. Let me be president of the Black Student Union. Like, I realized I was Black. But the organization-wise, it was just not there. So I definitely feel like the system failed the majority of the Black students at my previous high school. There was no information available. Not for Black scholarships, not for Black students. It was scholarships available for students, but you're competing against Becky, who's going to Yale and has a 5-point-something GPA. Her parents live in the big rich house up in, she has the best of everything, the best tutors, the best SAT scores. Like, you're competing against her for the same scholarship. How can I measure up?
I agree with you. But I also feel like our schools were different. I went to an all Black school, so like most of the teachers were Black, all the council Black, so they were literally trying to help us as much as they could. So versus you went to like a white school, so they probably not gonna help us much.
I have a question for you guys, because you guys all went to PWIs, right? So.
In high school, I don't know if you.
Actually, no, mine was predominantly Hispanic.
Yeah, but
Interesting. So what was that like?
Honestly, I mean, I didn't realize actually that statistic until I left high school, but I thought it was predominantly Black,
But it wasn't.
but it wasn't. There was probably a mixture. It's just the pool I dealt with, hung out with, surrounded myself with, the groups that I ran with.
Yeah.
Those were the people. Like, so that's what you saw every single day. Those are the most people that you saw. Those are the most people that you knew. I mean, not that I didn't hang out with white people. I mean, I played football, I played multiple sports, so we all intermingled. But when I left those sports, you kind of congregate to the people that kind of look like you. So,
Yeah, I agree.
But definitely in college.
I mean, definitely, yeah. In college, we definitely attended a PWI. It was definitely a shell shock for us. I think because, and it wasn't even necessarily, I don't think it necessarily should have been, but I think it was the way in which that we were enrolled and enforced on the community themselves.
What do you mean
So,
by that?
yeah, I was gonna say. So, do you mean when you say shell shock? Do you mean like it was a culture shock for you because you were around so many more white people?
It was
used to?
not even necessarily that. It was a
Like
culture shock
reverse?
for.
It was a culture shock for me, yeah, but I
Or
say
myself.
I think it was a culture shock for them as much as it was a culture shock for us, because now you have an influx of roughly probably like
Well, these-
100 African American men on this campus
That weren't there before.
that weren't there before.
What school is this?
We
Yeah,
can't.
what-
We're not gonna give them
You
any
know what?
credit.
We're not gonna put your alma mater on blast, but this is interesting.
Well, our school, the black people who were there to play sports, and those were the only black people who were there. So you knew kind of like, I mean, there was a divide in itself. The white people are there for the music program, or just to go to school there,
Theater program,
and then
or
we're
just
there to
theater,
play
yeah.
sports. And it was, you could feel it on campus, like walking around.
Was it hostile? What did the
It wasn't hostile. Sometimes it was like, "Aw, like who are you?" kind of thing. For me, at least.
I experienced that too.
I mean,
Like a lot of like some coddling, some. I didn't experience anything like bad from white people there, but you could feel that there was a difference in like why I'm there versus why they're.
it may be the same for you, but honestly, I wasn't, because I've been so I grew up in East Cobb, so like remember the area,
Yeah.
like definitely predominantly white
It
area.
is.
So, and that was from
I live in East Cobb.
Yeah, not for real. That was from like 4th grade. So
Yeah.
like, even in high school, like I hung out with a lot of different people, but
Yeah.
honestly, it was a little bit different for me because that was the first time, candidly speaking, that was the first time that I was really around a lot of black people. On like,
I had
and
a similar.
my
similar
dad's
experience.
family in North Carolina. I didn't really go see them that much. I don't really grow up around them.
Distant cousins.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So like when I get to Reinhardt, damn.
I'll bleep it out. I'll bleep it out. I'll bleep it out.
Yeah. My fault. No,
Second you said it, I was
yeah.
Chop to the
I
throat.
know. So when I get up there, then that's when I started continuing to get the, oh, you're a white boy, or you're, you know what I'm saying, you're XYZ, you're da whatever the case may be. And so I think that's really where my identity crisis went to a different level, because, you know, when you hear that from white people, it does something to you. But when you hear it from black people, it also does something to you
It
as well.
hurts.
So it puts you in a space where you're like, damn, how...
Do I identify?
Yeah, I think someone said it like two black for the white kids, two white for the black kids. And so like it puts you in that like middle ground too,
It's super
to where that, so when people start saying, oh, you sound, you talk very educated, it made me feel uncomfortable to the point where like I had to tell a professor one time, like, cause I winced when she said it, and I was like, I'm not gonna lie, I was like, you saying that, I understand what you're trying to say, but it's backhanded because what's the underlying thing that you're implying about other people
that don't talk like me, that look like me.
You know what I'm saying? What are you saying? You know what I'm saying? So
It's definitely backhanded.
yeah, and I think that was the difference for me.
I mean, undergrad for me wasn't really a culture shock. So from 7th to 12th grade, I went to private school, predominantly white area. But before that, up until 7th grade, I grew up in the DeKalb County public school system. So predominantly black. So going from 6th to 7th grade, that was more of a culture shock than going to high school to college. From being like in a class full of black people, and then going to a predominantly white school where I'm like the only black kid in my grade, for a few years. But at the time when I was going through high school, I was a little, I wouldn't necessarily say irritated, but I was just kind of like over, the whole thing of being like the minority in that setting. So like, like literally, once I got to 9th grade, more black kids started to come in, and then like during lunch class or during lunch period, we would all sit outside at the same table. Every single lunch period, all the black kids would sit together. You know, so we all stuck together in a tight-knit group, right? And then when I got to Reinhardt, I still pretty much hung out with. Oh shit!
It's okay.
When I got to that school up north, when I got to that school up north, it was like, okay, I'm back with my people now.
Right.
You know, so. But then again, like I wouldn't change or trade my experience in for the world just going through private school, because it exposed me to so many different things, right? I went jet skiing with one of my friends. Like I remember one of my friends, who's still my friend to this day, he invited me over to his lake house, and at that time I never heard of lake house. What the hell is lake house?
What the hell? I don't even know how to ride a whistle.
You got 2 houses? Like where I come from, we only got 1 house. Like even if that, we might just rent it. You know, we probably don't even own it. You know, and so that experience, and then even to this day, still got a lot of good friends that are white, and like a lot of them are doing well for themselves, right? So I would say that experience for myself has been pretty good. But looking back on it, still, like a lot of my black friends that I went to high school with, they're not doing as well as some of my white counterparts, and so that's the thing that kind of just like, nags me a little bit, like why is it the case?
Why is
like
there
we
a
both,
difference?
like we both had this great education in high school, right, and then we all went to great universities, but now it's like once we get out in the corporate world,
It's
nice.
So then that's a whole another different subject right there.
I agree.
But once I got to Reinhardt, I wouldn't necessarily say I had a culture shock myself. And then even like with the teachers, fortunately I had a great experience in terms of like the teachers. I didn't have any teachers give me problems, even though I was a student athlete, right? So some of my other teammates, they might have different, or I don't know if you guys have different takes on it, but like I was fortunately put in a great position where the teachers were nice.
That's good.
Did you guys have? Go ahead, Titus.
I would say I definitely experienced a culture shock. So in undergrad, I called myself trying to be an officer or join the military. And it was a lot. So I spent 2 of my summers there. So how I was supposed to go, I was supposed to do 2 summers of like basic training, but for the students. And then after that, I was going to graduate as a second lieutenant. And they paid for some of my schooling or gave me some money for some of my schooling. And I saw in the military, like the treatment of us, like black people, is horrible, as well as they feel like they're superior when you're there, and you can see like the mistreatment, like it's very, very obvious. And even though they gave me money, I came back and I was like, man, I don't want to do this. Like,
I
this is
can't
not
do
for me. And I experienced a lot. I would say like they treat black women bad, and blacks overall like bad in the military. And even though they gave me money, I'm like, I cannot do this. Like, I cannot continue 4 years. Like, of course, being an officer is like, it has its benefits, but it would have been bad for my mental health. Yeah, it was definitely a culture shock because I grew up with black people. Everywhere I went was black people. Mm-hmm. And I go there, it's like all different races and whites, and I'm like, this is racist. Yes.
Were you like uneasy?
Very, very. And I was nervous sometimes. I don't even get anxiety, but they were giving me anxiety. Like, I was ready to go home. I did not want to do it. So I came back and I quit.
I kind of felt like that when I moved here. Like, I felt like I wasn't black enough, and people was letting me know I wasn't black enough, and it was making me anxious. I was like, yo, I'm about to get a shot. Like, they're like, yeah, you're a little, like, valley girl. You sound like you're from the valley. You sound like you work at Starbucks. I'm like, like, okay, leave me alone. I'll still pop off, but, like, it's this, I feel like it's an unspoken thing about, like, if you sound a certain way, you're soft. Mm-hmm. I had to unfortunately pop off on Marcus in the club, so now he knows I'm not soft. But